Awesome.
Hello and welcome to Community Stories, where we chat with community builders. Today we have Kim Johnson, who was working with Glossier for 5 years, and now she's just joined recently with a cool community building platform called Geneva. So I'm excited to chat with Kim today. So excited to have you here, Kim. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Excited to be here. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
So Kim, how did you get into this wonderful world of community management where you go about building communities, engaging with people, talking with people, bringing them together? Like, what was the process and how it happened?
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of fell into community building. So I started at Glossier before it was a brand. It was just Into the Gloss, which was a editorial beauty platform blog. And I started there doing editorial stuff. I was kind of doing a little bit of everything. And it was there for 2 years before I was kind of transitioning into a different space. And the CEO of Glossier was like, why don't you do community? We talk about community, but we don't have anyone kind of owning it. And I was like, community, okay, I think I could do that. And I, 2015 started doing just that. And so, early days, I honestly was kind of just learning as I went. I was doing everything from like a little bit of user experience to hosting events. And then of course created our ambassador program. And so I honestly, I kind of happened into it, but what's so funny, and you only of course realize these things after the fact, but the thing that drew me to Into the Gloss in the first place it was the stories, but it was also the comment section. Into the Gloss has this amazing, lively comment section of people who, are just like, it's kind of sometimes the most engaging piece. It's like people who are just chatting, recommending products to each other. It's really amazing. And what's funny is that I realized that, the thing that brought me to Into the Gloss, ITG, is really the thing that kind of I then happened into. It was all about community. And for me, it was always about community from the start. I think I didn't really realize it early on. I thought about it as editorial and whatnot, but the storytelling and the like connection through beauty was, it was community. And I maybe didn't have the language for that at the time, but kind of came full circle in that way, I realized.
Yeah, that's so. I speak to like a lot of people, and that's the most common thing that I kind of
Yeah.
find out. Like I was doing things, and it just like I didn't know it was community, right?
Yeah.
It just happened that I was doing it before, but then like along the
Right.
way, 2015, 2016, like there came a word called community, and then all happened.
Right. Totally. Yeah, it's funny. And, it's also kind of full circle because when I think about Geneva, I think about all of the people who are kind of building groups and may not call themselves community leaders or, don't have the job description of community manager, but they are literally building community. And that's so exciting to me. Like, I now feel like I get to watch that journey of people who are happening into community because of something that they're passionate about and want to talk to others about, or whatever the case may be, and are becoming community leaders and may not even necessarily recognize it. So yeah, I feel like so many people in this space kind of have that similar story, which is pretty cool. I think it's why so many of us love doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Love doing it, enjoy doing it. Like it doesn't feel like it's work. I mean, it's work, but like when you love it, when you enjoy it, it's like it feels like it is not work.
Totally.
Yeah. So, so I read this thing like somewhere on Wikipedia or some one of the article, right? It was like Glossier success is credited to five C's: consumers, content, uh, conversations, co-creation, and community, right?
Yeah.
And it looked like community was the part of the entire company or the brand that Glossier has like created. So what is
Yeah.
that about, right? Community, like how was that important?
Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting because it kind of similar to the story I was telling you about how I started. Community and conversation about beauty was always core to Glossier because it started with Into the Gloss. It started as a platform for beauty storytelling. Um, and so, that kind of rang true as we continued to grow. And so I always thought about community while I was there as this kind of connection through beauty. And what I would say is, Glossier can be the facilitator and not the focus. And so beauty is so personal for people. It's so, there's so many things like life experiences that are connected to it. And, we had this amazing opportunity to really connect people around that. And it kind of, that feeds all of the different ways that your brand shows up, right? So one of the things that we knew was that, we didn't shy away from Glossier being talked about while other brands were also talked about. I thought I always had this mentality of like, it's a beautiful thing when someone has, a lot of different products in their medicine cabinet or in their beauty or in their kind of makeup bag. And Glossier is a part of that. And, there's one product or two products or three products that are just like their core staples from the brand. And we should kind of really celebrate, being a part of people's routines that are diverse and multifaceted and have different brands. And so I think that kind of, because of the start with Into the Gloss and the focus on beauty storytelling and beauty conversation, that really kind of fed all of the ways that we looked at how the brand showed up and how the brand kind of told its story and how the community really was a part of that.
Interesting. So what's the difference? I mean, like you just switch the industry, right? And now you're with Geneva. So
Yeah.
what what was this? Why was the switch? And like, what are you like? What do you work on? Like, what do you prioritize on building while you and your team is building Geneva?
Yeah. So, well, on the first piece, I think, so Glossier is kind of, it's where I first started doing community and really kind of learned from doing. And it was so, what was so cool is that we had this kind of growing community of people who were all connected through their love for the brand or their love for beauty. And now at Geneva, what I was excited about is the ability to kind of see community in all of its different facets. And so I like to think of like, at Glossier, I was working with and kind of cultivating this like amazing beauty focused community. And now I get to see so many different amazing communities with my work at Geneva, everything from beauty to environmentalism, green fashion, menstrual equity, professional communities. And so what's cool is like now I kind of get to help the community leaders for those different brands or organizations or groups bring the community to life. And so I get to see kind of this really wide, diverse world of communities. And what was the second piece you asked? You asked something else.
Like, how do you decide what to work on, right? Because community
Yeah,
building as a tool is a vast, right? Like there are a lot
yeah,
of players jumping in,
totally.
jumping like every week there are new
Totally.
platforms. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at Geneva, like community is everything, right? It's every piece of what we're building. And so my work is really everything from how do we help kind of incredible existing communities come on board and build and grow, to how do we help people who, I was saying earlier, maybe want to build a community, but don't really know how to start or where to start. How do we make sure that they have the tools and the resources to kind of build and thrive? To also, how do we work with our community, the people who love Geneva, to kind of tell our story and tell the story of what it means to create a community. I think for me, the thing that is so exciting to me about Geneva is that we have such a wide range of communities and groups. We have the 12-person book club to the multi-thousand-person ambassador program. And what's exciting to me is like all of those communities have their own kinds of rituals and experiences and approaches. And I just love to see the diversity, honestly, of the kinds of groups and communities that we have on board, and how they're building and growing and nurturing their relationships.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like at the end of the day, it's about how do you make sure like you're helping multiple community leaders at once. So you kind of look at the whole picture of how are people building communities and you get to help them. That's really cool. So I mean, tell us about like your time at Glossier was like for like a lot of years, and then you moved to Geneva. And you have been running multiple initiatives or started multiple initiatives, and one of them was like ambassadors program, right?
Yeah.
So what was was there a choice to do ambassador program versus ads and marketing? So why did you pick that?
Yeah, well, it's a good thing I wasn't doing ads marketing, because I'm a community person. I would have been like, what am I doing? But I think it's a balance, of course, for all brands. But yeah, I mean, it was an active choice for us to make the ambassador program, the rep program. And I think where that came from, so we started that in 2016. Really where that came from is we were seeing so many people post about Glossier organically. We had, and it was, what was amazing, it was like every kind of beauty look. Like it was the dewy skin look, and there was the like makeup look. And, maybe it was like people were using a full face of Glossier or just one product. And so what we knew is that people are posting about us organically. And, so many people were kind of like the go-to person about Glossier in their friend groups. And so that's kind of how we started conceptualizing the rep program. And it's funny because at the time, it was 2016, and there really weren't a lot of ambassador programs that kind of were commission-based programs in that way. And so many people's reference point for it was Avon or like Mary Kay. And we were like, oh, this is like an Avon. And I was like, I guess, but digital. And now, of course, you see so many programs like that, which is just super exciting. And I'm always inspired by a lot of the brand leaders who I know who are building those. But yeah, I mean, the choice to make an ambassador program was really, it was a response to what we were seeing already. It was a response to the fact that people love to share the brand. They love to share it with their friends. They love to share it on social. And so how can we actually build an experience where we're celebrating that and rewarding that, and also kind of bringing those people who are doing that already closer to our team, to our brand, and really kind of help them kind of be Glossier's megaphone and kind of tell the story of the brand and the products to their own people, their own communities, their own audiences, in the ways that they want to tell that story. And so what it did is it really kind of opened up the world of how the Glossier story was told to so many other voices. And that was super exciting. And I think, one of the things that I say all the time is that, my belief is that your community can often tell your story better than you can. And that really just, it was honestly the best example of that. So that's how it came to life.
Yeah, it's very interesting because so I was listening to one of the conversation with David Spinks and
Yeah.
A head of community at Twitch. Not able to
Yeah.
recall the name. And a similar thing happened with Twitch as well, right? Like people like for Glossier, people were doing it organically, right? They were
Yeah.
talking to friends, they were talking to everyone, right? Without you having to like get in touch or give them a platform, right? But when you see a such organic push from without you having to do anything, like you have to think like, do we really give them a platform to do that on a bigger level, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Twitch did, and I'm like, it's very interesting to kind of hear that even Glossier did very similar
Yeah.
approach or follow the approach, right? So I had this question where, like, right, like Twitch is different, Glossier is different, right?
Yeah.
But should all startups do it, right?
An ambassador
And
program.
yeah, ambassadors program. And what are the criteria, or like why should a startup, like how do they measure before deciding on going or planning on a rep program?
Yeah. So, it's hard to say, honestly. I think even just pulled back from an ambassador program, I think community is such a hot topic right now. Everyone's like, we've got to have a community, we've got to have a community. And then you talk to people and they'll be like, okay, well, what do you want? What are you like? What's the community going to be around? What are they going to be connected about? They're like, well, we got to have a community as we're a brand. And I'm like, well, wait, that can't be the only reason why, community has to be something bigger than just the brand or people, hearing from you as the brand. It's got to really be people connecting with each other and you facilitating that magic. I think that all brands today should have a perspective on how they engage and activate and celebrate their people. So maybe that doesn't necessarily look like an ambassador program, but I think it does look like being really intentional about how do we celebrate and support and, give kind of a lot of love and attention to the people who are who love us and who are talking about us already. When I started doing community, the focus was on influencers, so it was very rare that you had, you were creating events that were for your customers. You were creating events that were for influencers. And so, so often I would have events with community members and they'd be like, I'm just so surprised that I'm invited. And I'm like, well, you're, very important to our brand. You've been engaged with us for a long time. You've celebrated our brand. And so I don't know that every brand should have an ambassador program, but I do think that every brand, especially now when people have a lot of choice, and it is always incredible when someone chooses you and chooses your brand, it's really important that you celebrate that and that you ensure that you are creating experiences and touch points for people that go beyond your product and what you're selling to them.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear that because like you mentioned, right? Like how do you engage with them? How do you activate your people? How do you like celebrate with your community, right? Like how do you do that, right? So there could be like 100 different ways, and that way will not include ambassadors program. It could be something else, right? And like I think a brand or a product should focus or kind of figure out what is that thing, what is that spark that will make your community talk about you. And yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you started as as a community professional, right, like in 2015 or 2014, right? So there were not a lot of resources around. Like I'm sure you'd have faced a lot of challenges. So what was your, like, one of the like biggest challenge that you faced while you started your career in community management?
Yeah. There definitely were not a lot of resources. I was really just like learning by doing. Some of the biggest challenges, I think, um, early on, well, you know, I think all communities experience this. You want to, as your brand or your organization or whatever your kind of business is, as it grows, you want to make sure that you are still creating a really intimate and meaningful community experience, but you also want to make sure that you bring that experience to more people, right? And so, how you balance scale and growth with true community and connection is always a challenge. It's why I'm such a believer in like really taking the time to identify who are the segments of our community. Like your community, usually maybe they're centered around one interest or love, but they might show up to that in different ways. They might have different experiences. They might do different things professionally. You know, the list goes on. And I think, you know, understanding what those different groups of your community are and how they show up and what they want from you is so important as you continue to scale and grow, because what inevitably happens is you have this group of people that's just super diverse and kind of, you know, maybe global, and you want to still be able to create the touch points that are true community experiences. And so I think that's one that, you know, I experienced, and I think so many communities do, frankly. And then the other piece was just, honestly, you know, when we created the rep program in 2016, a lot of people didn't really get it. They were like, what is this like Mary Kay but online thing? And you know, naturally that makes you kind of like, oh, is this something that makes sense? Is it something we should do? But it had an incredible kind of, you know, it kind of took off. And I think that when you have so little resources or so little kind of references, the sticking to your guns and is a hard thing to do. But yeah, so that was a challenge. You know, it was like it felt a bit blank slate, and we were just kind of trying to figure out what felt right. It was a lot of gut, and now I always say to people, like, going with my gut is my hard skill. But honestly, I think that was also tricky, was just, you know, believing in the kinds of experiences that you're building. And with community as well, I think we all know this, but when you're early in community building, it takes time. It takes time to make connections. It takes time to build a community that's thriving and kind of can take off and grow and on its own. And you know, ensuring that you take that time and you give that care and space to a community to truly kind of grow authentically and to nurture it is also super important. I think, you know, so many businesses are like dollars first. Obviously, that's important too, but community, especially in the early days, just isn't going to be that. And you have to commit to knowing that how valuable it is to bring experiences to your people. And, you know, sometimes that doesn't look like dollars immediately, but the value is so much bigger than that. So yeah, I think those challenges are things that I experienced early on, and frankly, I think people still experience as they build communities.
Yeah, that's so true. So I say this to whenever I speak to people, like think of your community as a business, uh,
Mm.
uh, like or a or a sales process, right? Like you can't generate revenue within your first day of a job, right?
Yeah.
You have to start with like who do I reach out to, what kind of people I need to talk to, like,
Yeah.
and then build that relationship over a period of time, like 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. Like it takes a long time to kind of crack a deal in a business, right?
Totally.
And that's how like it should be. Like I could be wrong, like I might be thinking wrong, but that's how you should be thinking as a like long term planning, not short term results, right? And
Totally.
do one step at a time, things that like do things that don't scale, right? Like you said, authenticity, it's really important when you are building a community, or if you're a community professional doing things, right? People will smell, like if you're just doing it for like, we're trying to give them a reason not to like you, by not being authentic, like they leave you just like tomorrow. You
Oh,
won't have a community anymore.
totally.
Yeah,
I am so there with you.
yeah, that's interesting. So to continue with the ambassadors or a rep program, right? What takes, right? What make people stay or be be the part of that program, or like is it a moment that people feel, okay, I need to be part of this Glossier ambassador program?
Yeah, I mean, once the program started to scale, we were getting people emailing in constantly, wanting to be a part. I think, I think of everything. Community is truly, it is relationships, right? And so relationships are give and take. Um, and so, we built the rep program such that, people would share Glossier and get commission on orders, but also, um, we built experiences for those individuals. We had, um, you know, they got products in advance, and we would do sometimes sessions with our product development team where they would walk them through the kind of story of creating that new product. And so that when the reps went out into the world and kind of told the story of the product, they had these amazing anecdotes from our team of how it came to life. And we do in-person meetups, virtual meetups. And so the experience of being a rep wasn't just about, share Glossier with your followers or your community. It was about, this was really a cohort of our people who we wanted to connect to each other. And so many incredible relationships were built through that program. And so it was always important to us to build a kind of a reciprocal experience and program, that people, brought people closer to the brand and the team, and that, people just enjoyed being a part of. And so, yeah, so, as it grew, we had lots of people who were, wanting to take part in that. And that always is always a good sign of, building something that's meaningful for people.
Interesting. So, and how are you applying that today with Geneva, right?
Yeah.
Or you have learned over a period of time, like what's the process now like?
Yeah. So, a few ways. I think first is, as I talk to so many community leaders every day, who are thinking about building their communities or evolving them or growing them. And, what I love to do is just talk to them about what the experiences they're building, and, how they're kind of creating this kind of, an experience for their people that is really kind of, reciprocal, where people can both know how to show up there, but also know the incredible and exciting things that they'll get from being a part of it. So that's one, and I love doing that. And the second is really thinking about how do we actually build the Geneva community. We have so many people who are community leaders or members who are, just, they are so excited about building their communities, and doing that on Geneva, and how we've been, doing sessions with them, with our team, and talking to them about how they approach community building, what we're building, and how those things intersect, has just been super exciting. And it's building again that foundation of celebration and activation of your community. And we're continuing to build that now as we grow. So yeah, I think both ways, both, working with community leaders to build their own experiences and building ours is where it shows up. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Give community builders what they want, and they'll create a meaningful experience for their community, which is like
right.
Geneva doing that for them is like a big deal, right? Absolutely, right? And I love it. So what are the things that you're doing in like uniquely? Okay, let me put it that way, right? Like this way, like what's your community ideal community building platform?
That's a great way to put it. It's so funny that you asked that, because this is literally why I joined the team at Geneva. I think I love to see like so many different kind of community tools and products and resources come to life. Right now, it's what I wish I had had when I was starting, honestly, in 2015 at Glossier. And, when I was coming up doing community, I really never felt like I could find a platform that fit for what I wanted. And so I built the first kind of Glossier community space on Slack, because I just didn't really, I couldn't find a space that felt flexible and easy enough, but that also kind of I could structure in the way that I wanted. And so for me, the ideal community platform allows you to one, have that kind of flexibility, ease and accessibility of, how you can set up a Slack, but with a true focus on communities, right? And what's exciting to me about what we're building is I like to think of it as kind of building blocks. And so what we know is that like communities connect with each other in different ways. And so my experience, and I know so many community leaders who have the same experience, where it's like you're stitching together a Slack because you want people to chat and like have casual conversation, but then you have an update, so you need to send an email, right? Because you don't want that to get lost in Slack. And then, you have a roundtable, so you want to have a Zoom, and you're just like constantly stitching together things. That's the life of a community manager often. And what my favorite thing about Geneva is that we're not married to one medium. And so in your community or in your home, you can have a chat room, you can have a post room, you can have an audio room, you can have a video room. And that ability to kind of centralize all of those different kinds of communication, those different kinds of connection building, is the thing that I always wished that I would have had. And we'll just continue to kind of build on top of that. But yeah, I think, the ability to create a community in a space that is flexible and really accessible, but that gives you choice, was always what I wanted. And so, when I talked to the team here, it just was so, I said to myself, okay, either I'm going to like bring Glossier on here, I'm going to go work here, yeah, I'm so excited about, just continuing to build the little pieces on top and continuing to give communities and community leaders choice as it comes to how they build their group and how they grow it and nurture it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. As like, so we hear about things like unbundling of the great unbundling, but what Geneva is doing is like bundling all of them in one piece, so that like a community managers don't have to run to Zoom, MailChimp, like all other products to kind of do their work, right? which makes community managers life easier, like which makes my life easier also.
1000%.
Yeah. So, closing question, like, what's the one piece of advice that you have for up and coming community builders?
That's a great question. I love that. My piece of advice is, one, if you work at a business, always remember that you are the voice of the community that's not in the room. It is, your job. It's hard for community leaders, right? Because you sit between the people and the company. And so sometimes you have to make the hard decisions. It can always be tricky, but I think community managers or community leaders have to remember that they are the voice of the community who may not have a seat in the room when conversations are happening, and how important and valuable and meaningful that is. So that's one. And always talk to your people. Truly, it's so simple, but talk to your community. Get on a call with one person a week. And there's nothing that will tell you more than just truly having conversations with your community members. And two or three, I guess it's three, is meet people where they are. I think in 2020 in particular, there is so much happening in the world. 2021, oh my God. 2021 in particular, there's so much happening in the world. And what's really important for communities is to be able to know how they can show up, but also kind of feel excited about the opportunity to take part. And a lot of that means kind of meeting people where they are, and really understanding what people like, what they're interested in, what they want more of, and as best as you can, kind of building that and delivering that to people. And go with your gut. I think community leaders are naturally quite intuitive people. That's at least my experience with the community leaders that I know. And you're people. I'm an introverted people person. So go with your gut about things. It's usually it's often the right answer, especially when it comes to people and relationships and community. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, that was great. Go with talk to your people. So I often whenever I speak, don't don't go about building features.
Yeah.
Talk to people. Talk to your people, because they know
Talk to
better than
people.
what you want to do, right? Because they will guide you, and that's what a successful community is. Like, if they are able to guide you to do right things, then you're on the right path, doing great things.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so true.
Yeah, yeah. Where can we where can we find you online? What's the link to
Yeah.
Geneva? What's the link to app, so that people can download, our listeners can download and
Yeah.
start exploring?
Yeah. So Geneva is available. You can find us anywhere. We have web apps. You can find us at genevachat.com, or you can find us in the App Store on iOS or Android. And it's easy. You can download and start your group, bring your people in. And me personally, I'm on Twitter. I literally cannot remember my Twitter handle.
We'll put it on our show notes. Yeah.
On Twitter, on Instagram, all the places.
Yeah.
You can find me on all the places. So
we'll link it to our show notes. That's end of our episodes.